E-scooters, as I understand, are currently illegal in London. So how is it that e-scooters are currently terrorising our streets and pavements at this time, endangering and imperiling other road users, particularly those vulnerable older pedestrians, young families and disabled, as well as sight-impaired using pavements? The most recent statistics I have seen apparently include pedal bikes covering e-bikes as well as e-scooters. In 2019, 379 pedestrians were hit by pedal cyclists, of which 4 were killed, 122 were seriously injured. So the question to my noble friend is, what is the current framework for enforcement? Who is monitoring the use of e-scooters to ensure that these are limited to private land outside London, and what penalties are imposed for their illegal use?
The noble lady, my noble friend indeed, highlights the intricacies of the number of different micromobility interventions that we currently have, and e-scooters are but one of them. And she is absolutely right that the private use of e-scooters on public highways is indeed illegal. A person can be fined up to £300, get 6 points on their licence. Their e-scooter can be impounded. So, my lords, we do have the tools at our disposal. Obviously, local enforcement activities are operational decisions for local police forces.
Lord Shinquin.
My lords, barely a day passes when I'm not passed in my wheelchair on the way to the House by someone riding an e-scooter on the pavement. Given the danger e-scooters pose to disabled people, particularly those with visual impairments, and given the tools that my noble friend the Minister has just mentioned are at the disposal of the authorities, what reassurance can she offer to disabled people that those tools will be used?
My noble friend is quite right that it can be a frightening prospect, particularly for those vulnerable road users on the road or indeed the pavement to be terrorised by e-scooter users. But I do not believe that that means that we have to not proceed with trials in order to establish exactly what the risks are and build an evidence base as to how they might be used successfully. I will take note of his comments and I will make sure that colleagues in the Home Office are aware of the concerns about enforcement of e-scooters on pavements going forward.
Lord Snape.
The Minister aware that Birmingham is one of the cities selected for the trial of e-scooters, that the representatives of the blind and partially sighted community have expressed widespread concern about the number of these wretched things that have been abandoned in the city centre as a result of this trial. Does the Minister anticipate ditching her ministerial car to use one, and can she see the Piers car park being packed with e-scooters at some time in the future? And finally, can she just reflect that replacing the private car by these sort of machines, we've heard it all before, and will e-scooters go the same way as the Sinclair C5 or the Segway?
My lords, the government believes that e-scooters, if used in the right way, do have great potential and could encourage modal shift away from the car. That is why we're doing these trials, and I'm really delighted that Birmingham has decided to be forward-thinking, as I would expect it to be, and to take up the opportunity for a trial. And there's a lot of things that go into place when a trial is established. There is liaison with the local police, of course there is careful liaison with the operator, and one of the things that is of key concern is to make sure that the scooters are put back in the places that they belong, and that is something that we are very focused on with each of the operators.
Baroness Randerson.
My lords, will the noble lady the Minister undertake to introduce lessons on the safe use of electric scooters as part of road safety education in schools when the government get to the point of making decisions on how they should be operated in future? And can she also undertake that charities representing the disabled will be fully consulted before the government makes final decisions?
I can certainly guarantee the latter, that we will be consulting all sorts of people as we make the final decision on the trials, but as I note, the trials are in place. I cannot go into the hypothetical of what might happen if the government might do something in the future. However, what I will say is that at the moment, users of the trials do get instruction from the app about the use. There are stickers on the scooters themselves reminding people stay off the pavements, also about the area in which the scooters can be used. And indeed, some operators have advanced training modules and incentives to users in order to complete them.
Lord Rosser.
Yes, the government have provided for a number of e-scooter trials around the country as pilots, as the noble lady, the minister, has indicated. What will constitute a positive outcome of an e-scooter pilot exercise, and what will constitute a negative outcome of an e-scooter pilot exercise?
A very specific question to which I probably cannot provide the answer, because as the Noble Lord will know, when it comes to road safety, there is always some very careful benefits and very significant risks to look at together. And as we go through these trials, obviously the evidence will be coming forth, and we will look at that and make the decision accordingly.
Lord McCall of Dulwich.
My Lord, it's really not surprising there have been so many serious injuries, because the combined weight of these miscreants with their scooters is over 100 kilos, and they often break the speed limit of over 40 miles an hour. Will the government encourage local police forces to enforce the law so that injuries and death can be avoided? Blind people, of course, are particularly vulnerable.
And I think my noble friend has identified for your Lordship's House the difference between illegal use of private e-scooters on public roads and the trials, because it is the case that to date there have been 2 million journeys on e-scooters within the trials. They've travelled the equivalent distance to the moon 13 times and back again. So that's 5 million kilometres. In all of that time, there have been 0 fatalities, 0 people hospitalised as an inpatient. There have been 11 what you could call serious injuries but not hospitalisation injuries, and 62 slight injuries like a sprained ankle or something. That from 2 million journeys. The Noble Lord mentioned they can go up to 40 miles an hour. Again, for a trial e-scooter, that is impossible. They are limited to 15.5 miles an hour. So I think it is important that we continue with these trials. We embrace technology, we embrace innovation, we assess the risks, and we make the right decision.
Baroness Vere.
My lords, whilst it's expensive, it's sold without any guidance or rules. I spoke to 10 scooter owners over a few days on my street of various ages, all male. Not one was aware about restriction on public use or issued advice on licensing and insurance at the time of purchase. I tried it myself at my backyard, and it is fun, my lords. Does Noble Lord Lady the Minister agree, regardless of what she is saying and the assurance she has made, that ambiguities remain about rules of its use? So when can we expect government direction to be made available to all retailers and manufacturers? And is it time for government to consider public information campaigns?
It is the case that the vast majority of retailers do say when one purchases an e-scooter that they are only for use on private land. I will certainly take the comments of the noble lady back to the department and see what else we can do in that regard.
Lord Whitty.
My lords, given the dangers to pedestrians, particularly disabled pedestrians, how come there are scooters within a few hundred yards of the Palace of Westminster and elsewhere on the pavement, when it's against the law anywhere to be on the pavement? How come there have been so few prosecutions, and how come you are still allowed to buy and sell these scooters when in the trial areas you have to use only those that are provided by designated renters?
I believe that I've probably addressed many of the issues that the Noble Lord already points out. I will take the point back to the Home Office about enforcement, about what more we can do, and it is the case that e-scooters should never be on the pavement, as is the case, obviously, with bicycles, for example. But in finishing, I'd just like to say that, the OECD's International Transport Forum analysed various global studies of e-scooter safety, and they concluded that they are broadly equivalent to cycles. That may or may not be reassuring to the Noble Lord.
My Lords, the time allowed for this question has elapsed, and we now come to the third oral question,